Hi, I'm Shauna from Heritage Springs, and it's a rainy day in March. It's the second week in March, so it's time to start my peppers and tomato seedlings. I've done a couple trays already, but I decided I would show you how to do them. I've been getting a lot of questions on how to grow your own garden, how to start your own plants from seed. So I thought it would be a good day to show you. So I just have here one of the seed trays with cells that hold 72 seedlings here. This one was left over from, I don't know, I've used it for a couple of years, I think. At the end of the season, I just dump these out and keep them in my shed. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill this with soil. This is actually a seed starting potting mix that I like. You can use any light mix for this. You don't want to use anything that's like, you don't want to use like a topsoil or anything too heavy. So you can make your own if you want to. With you want to use some like a little bit of compost if you have it, maybe some perlite, peat moss. But personally, I just like to use this seed starting mix. It's easy, and it's relatively inexpensive. So, just gonna fill these up here. I don't pack them tight. You just loosely get the soil in there. And then, the reason I'm not gonna pack them is because I water them next. And then once I get the seeds in, I just put another loose layer of soil over the top of those. And that seems to be good for starting the seeds. Okay. So a lot of your seeds you can direct sow into the ground. You don't have to do this. But for tomatoes, and especially peppers take a long time. I like to get a head start, so I do like to start these inside. Alright, so that's a good start. And then I have just plain water here. There's no plant food in here or anything. I'm just gonna lift up the edge of this and pour this directly into the tray. And I don't know, about a ½ inch, I guess, of water. And that'll start making its way up into the soil. And then the other thing, I just like to take this little water bottle and moisten these just a little bit so that the seeds stick to the soil. You can use a spray bottle for this as well. I've done both. Just happen to have this handy today, so I'm using this. I like to use these little bottles when I water like a terrarium or a fairy garden or something like that. There we go. And you're not trying to get the soil super wet. Like I said, you just want it so that your seeds can stick to it when you put them down. And as a matter of fact, you really don't want this soil to be super wet at all because it will eventually mold if you do that. So you want it moist enough that your seeds can get a good start, but not soggy wet. Okay, so I'm going to plant early jalapenos. These are from last year. I've got tape over the back. And I don't really like to keep my seeds for more than 2 years. So I'm actually trying to get through all of these seeds, which means I'll probably have some extra seedlings to share or sell. But if you have a packet of seeds like this and you don't want to use them all, just grab a piece of masking tape and tape it back down. And that way you're not going to lose your seeds and you still have your packet, which is kind of nice because it has planting instructions and things like that on there. So just going to pour these out into my hand. I don't know why I do that. I always pour them into my left hand and then dump them into my right hand. And then I put 2 seeds per cell because not all of these are going to germinate, and especially since these are the second year I've had them, the germination rate is actually probably even lower than normal, which is usually, I don't know, 80% or so, I guess I get. So I'm just going to put 2 of these down, and I'm just putting them on the surface. I'm not going to bury them in the dirt. And then afterward, I'm going to go ahead and put some more soil on top. So I used to just put 1 seed per cell because I didn't want to waste my seeds. But then I would end up having, 20% of my cells would be empty. And it was just, I don't know, I realized after a little bit of time that it was wasted effort to do that. And it was better just to go ahead and start it off with 2 seeds. And then if you have too many seedlings, if everything sprouts, you can separate them and repot them. Which with peppers, I typically do that anyway. I start them in these trays, and then once they get going and they have a good root system established, I do transplant them into pots. And let them grow bigger, because like I said, peppers take a long time to get started, so I like to give them a lot of time inside. So and they like the hot weather. They're not a spring plant, so we're starting them in March, and we'll probably put them outside at, I don't know, end of May probably. Okay, so that's 4 rows of these early jalapenos, and then I get these little plant markers, and I do reuse these as well, but I don't have any of this particular variety from last year, and I don't actually remember growing this kind of jalapeno last year either, so. And there's a lot of seeds in here. So I'm not sure if maybe I just opened the package and then closed it back up because I decided to plant something different. I have no idea. But anyway, so I'm just going to put on here, and don't use a Sharpie. I've made that mistake before, and as soon as you put these pepper plants out in your garden and the rain starts raining on your markers, your plant markers, if you use a Sharpie, you're not going to know what you grew. So get a marker specifically made for garden signs, and then just write what it is. So early jalapeno, and set that right in here. And these are 4-inch markers, which is a good height, because when I put the plastic lid on top, it fits right over here. So, okay, so let me just quick fill these out. And then I like to do every step before I move on to the next type of seeds. I don't like to just put like a bunch of different kinds of seeds in here and then mark them, because I never remember what I put in. And I don't like to cover them up before they're marked. Anyway, I've got a method to my madness. So once you get them marked, then you just take a little bit of this soil and drop it over the top. And I just kind of loosely let it fall where it wants to, I guess. You just want to make sure your seeds, they don't have to be like deep buried or anything. You just want like a loose covering of soil over the top. And then that's it. So you got your seeds in here, you have your markers, you put the soil over the top, and then I'm gonna finish this tray. But once I get done, I'll put this over the top like this. And then I'm gonna leave this on here until I see sprouts that are about 1.5 inches maybe 2 inches tall, until they start to hit the roof. So I'm going to leave this on here. I'm going to take this entire thing and set it on a heat mat because peppers like heat. So do tomatoes. So when I start my peppers and tomatoes, I always put a heat mat down, and there's heat mats available on Amazon, or I mean, I'm sure you can get them at your garden center, but just seedling mats is what you want. And so I put these on a heat mat, and then once the seedlings poke through, I put grow lights on them, and then once they get to the top of this dome, I just take this off. I put these aside for the next time I grow seedlings, and then you keep them on your heat mat, you keep the grow lights on them, and then I check them every couple of days and just make sure that there's still a little bit of water in here, or you can lift them up and see if they're heavy. If they're heavy, you're good. If they start to dry out and they're light, just put a little bit more water in here and let it get sucked up into your cells. And then when it's really warm out, like I said, here in Northern Virginia around the end of May, middle of May, end of May, depends on what the weather's doing, I will transplant these out in the garden, and that's all there is to it. And they'll grow up nice and strong. When you transplant them, you can add a little bit of worm castings or some other type of nutrient. I like to do all organic gardening, so I don't use any, synthetic fertilizers, but worm castings are good, or bone meal is good too. So anyway, that's it. So if you have any questions, let me know, but I'll be starting my tomatoes this exact same way. And then probably most of my spring vegetables like cabbage, kale, Brussels sprouts, beets, things like that. I'm going to get started here, not today because it's raining, but maybe tomorrow or next weekend, and I'll direct sow those right out into the garden. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Gardening's really not that hard. You just got to get started, and you learn as you go. So that's it.